Hi, friends. Welcome to this week's class of Dead Funny University. I am your host and fellow student, Kelsey, and this week we are talking about our next Wakandian, Shuri. Our professor this week is again Chris because he knows all things Marvel. Thank you so much for being here today, Chris. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Doing good.
Are you excited to talk about Shuri?
Actually, yes. She's pretty interesting. She's not had a long run in the comics because she was created in 2005, but she has had an interesting run in the comics. So, let's just say
Now,
she's
with
made
that,
it somewhere in her
I
short
have a
run.
question.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Finish your
I
statement.
was just
I'll
gonna
go
say that
next.
she's definitely gotten to some places in her short stint in the comics for sure. So,
Now, just to understand kind of on average, she was started 14 years ago.
mhm.
With that in mind, is that a comic coming out that may feature her once a week, once a month, once a year? Like what is normal for a comic book
It
span?
really depends. So I think a lot of comics try to start their series off as once a week. Wednesday is
Mhm.
comic day. So normally they try to start it off as once a week. It depends on how sales do, on whether or not it gets moved to once a month or twice a month or canceled. So it really depends on sales. But she obviously did not get her own stint in the comics as, Shuri episode or issue number one. So she definitely started in Black Panther, so she was already in a thriving comic, so she got a little bit of a pick me up off of that. But I don't know how big her solo fan base is, but she's definitely made some moves. That's for sure.
Now, do you have any idea how comic book writers can tell? Because you mentioned, oh, hey, we just tried out this character and that one sold more, so they clearly knew it was the character that made it take off. How do comic book writers get their feedback from the fans about who they want to see, what they want to see?
I mean, there's plenty of places for that. There's plenty of different comic book websites and shit like that. I believe they put like email addresses and shit in there too, so you can always like fucking send in letters and shit like that. Not to
So if you're
mention
like, I
just
love Shuri, you
overall,
can just write that
yeah.
email. Okay.
Not to mention overall, like, there's so much talk that happens in comic book shops, and a lot of those comic book shops actually have deals with like writers and shit like that where they can come in and do signings and shit like that. So that information gets spread, and then to even go as further than that, it's just like one of those things where it's like you take a gamble with it. So it's like, all right,
Mhm.
this comic did extremely well. There was a new character in it. Let's try to get this new character a bigger role and see how well that does. And if it doesn't do that well, then we know either one, we fucked up, or two, that character had nothing to do with this comic being as good as it was. So
Okay, got it. Well, thanks for that clarity. Do you have a starting quiz for me?
I do, I do. So
Let's hear it.
first comic book appearance,
Crazy cool inventors, number one.
Black Panther. It's what I said earlier, but I'm not gonna give you the number because you don't give
Yeah.
you your answers yet. I did give you a little bit of a tease earlier with saying it was Black Panther, so no, you're wrong. Birthplace,
Wakanda?
correct.
Do I get bonus points if I guess Jabari province or town?
I did not actually find out exactly where she was, so
Okay.
Wakanda is all we got. What was the first overall goal she had for herself? What was her first goal she wanted to
Make
attempt attaining?
something significant?
No.
Okay.
Who trained her to become a fighter?
Let's go T'Challa.
Yep.
Yay!
Has she ever become the Black Panther?
Yes.
Yes, that is also correct. So you got 3 out of the 5. That's better
That's
than some
actually
of your
pretty
others.
good.
Yeah, that's better than some of your others. That's for sure. 3 out of the 5. We'll take it. We
All
will
right, so
take
give
it.
me base level Shuri knowledge. Give me her base story here.
So base level, she is the princess of Wakanda.
Hmm.
Um, her mother is actually different than T'Challa's mother. They have different moms, which I don't think that is
Okay.
actually shown in the movies. Um, once again, separate timelines happen in comics all the time, so that could be rewritten somewhere else. But her main one, starting off in her first comic book appearance, which was Black Panther, Volume 4, Number 2, in May 2005. Like I said, she hasn't been around for too long. But as she was growing up, one of the first goals she ever had that she wanted to accomplish was to become the first female Black Panther, which she almost achieved before T'Challa became Black Panther. T'Challa was fighting his uncle for the title of Black Panther, but no one knew it was T'Challa. It was a masked man. And she did not want her uncle to lose to somebody who possibly wasn't in the bloodline, and she asked her mother if she could go run in the ring, and her mother said no. Well, she defied her mother and ran and jumped the fence, but by the time her feet touched the ground, she looked up and saw that her uncle had lost to the masked man, and the masked man took his mask off, and it was T'Challa. So, didn't go anywhere anyway, but she actually almost possibly could have became the first Black Panther before her brother. First female Black Panther. Sorry.
Now, you say she didn't become the first female Black Panther because T'Challa became Black Panther.
Correct. So she lost her shot
But
there. She still was the first female Black Panther. Correct.
okay, that
Sorry.
very good.
I
Continue.
worded that wrong for sure. Anyways, so as we know, Black Panther, kind of like Thor, gets a lot more invested in things going on outside of Wakanda with his superhero friends and stuff like that. He even does a stint where he's like the Daredevil for a little while and shit like that. Like, yeah, he starts getting into all kinds of shit where he can't really pay too much attention to what's going on. So then Shuri steps up and becomes the first female Black Panther. She goes to do the whole ritual, but at the end, the Black Panther god rejected her. Actually rejected
Oh.
her. Yep. And the reasons why was because she proved wrong. Basically because fuck, I had it remembered and now I can't remember what it was. Fuck. It's because she
Here.
was too arrogant, that's what it was. She was too arrogant and jealous of T'Challa. So therefore her having that, he didn't see her being pure at heart, so therefore she could not possess the powers. But later on, the god ends up deeming her to be worthy because she does a selfless act. In other words, they end up getting like an attack on Wakanda, I believe, and she, without being able to have the power of the Panther, still dons the Panther outfit and goes out there to protect Wakanda while the Black Panther is away. And the Panther god sees that as a noble cause and a selfless act because basically she could have easily died without having the powers of the Black Panther.
Okay.
Yep. So then, now we get into some really, really cool shit. So she ends up becoming the actual Black Panther, and she is kind of really aggressive, which is a different edge than T'Challa. So she's pretty aggressive, but it kind of helps Wakanda get to a couple places it needs to be, so it wasn't necessarily bad. But she definitely is not scared to go to war if she needs to, that's for sure. And one of her first big conquests as queen of Wakanda was the destruction of Atlantis. She actually brought upon the destruction of Atlantis. Yes.
Oh boy.
And her and Namor fought it out for sure, and she won. But she ends up getting into a couple other comic book series where she is still queen of Wakanda and gets to a spot where she actually ends up dying. And then Black Panther spends all that time trying to bring her back to life. While he's trying to bring her back to life, it's like her soul goes into this like limbo-ish type dimension where she learns a lot more just overall about Wakanda and its people and everything else like that, and it actually enlightens her to a point where when she gets brought back to life, she actually then gains the power of transformation.
Ooh.
Which we've only seen, well, personally, I've only seen 3 transformations in the comics, which was a flock of birds, a gigantic bird, and then turning all her skin into stone to be able to bounce bullets and shit off of her.
Interesting. And were those the 3 that she uses, or are you talking about those are 3
I've
that
seen? But I think that that's all, because once again,
Okay.
she'll probably get a little bit more love after Endgame and maybe get some more solo comics, but I mean, like I said, she's only been out since 2005, so.
So it sounds like her story has a lot of fleshing out it can do and a lot further it can go.
For sure. We've gotten short stints, but like I said, in her short stints, she's definitely has made quite the impact. Going from the little princess of Wakanda to the queen to take down Atlantis, which is pretty fucking impressive.
Yeah.
So She's definitely done
So,
some damage.
yeah, are we at a place where I can start asking
Go
questions?
ahead. That's pretty much base
Okay.
knowledge.
Yeah.
That's where she's at
So,
now. Is she is basically she's known as the Queen of Wakanda, but she's not technically the Black Panther right now. She's got like this whole new look and new outfit, which actually looks pretty cool. She's got like this fucking like crazy like feather headdress and shit. Like she looks badass. She looks really fucking cool. So
that's super cool. So, first, is T'Challa aware that he's so distracted that she's become the Queen of
yes,
Wakanda?
he knows about her taking on the mantle, and he's not against it.
And he's not
He's
against
okay
it.
with it.
Okay, cool.
Basically, it gives him
Now,
his chance to still do what he needs to do for his team, and knowing that someone that he feels is fit to be the Black Panther is taking care of Wakanda in his absence, and knows that he can come back and they can, help each other at any point in order to do what needs to be done. So,
okay, so they get to a place where they're at peace with it and they're cool with it. There's no anger, jealousy
because whenever
issues.
she dies, he immediately stops all his Avengers shit and goes back to Wakanda and does what he needs to do there while he tries to bring her back to life. So,
Now, just to make sure that other people aren't as confused as I could be, our very first DFU episode was on Aquaman, and it was a test episode. It was on Aquaman, and it was on, we discussed Atlantis. This is a different Atlantis,
it's a
correct?
different Atlantis because it's two completely different comic book universes.
Yes,
DC
good.
and Marvel.
Now, other than her taking over Atlantis, does Atlantis play a key role in the Marvel universe?
Yes.
Like, we don't have to go into too much. Okay,
Namor,
it really does.
Namor is legitimately actually Namor was made before Aquaman, but Namor is DC's Aquaman or Marvel's Aquaman,
Okay.
and he is an Avenger. So yeah,
Okay, and we just haven't seen him because he hasn't been brought into the franchise on
I
screen
don't
yet.
think he's going to. I don't think Namor definitely doesn't have a fan base like Aquaman. That's for sure. That is not a thing. I'll say it
So,
plays a huge role in the comics, but in the fandom, it's nowhere near the same kind of Atlantis.
okay. Does she have any names other than Shuri or I imagine Black Panther? Like, does she have any other aliases she
Shuri,
goes
that's
by?
about it. Yeah, just Queen Shuri.
Okay. Now, does she have a does she marry a king or does she stay
No,
single? Like, do we know
that
anything
I
about
know
that?
she stays single. I don't think she marries at all. But once again,
Okay.
it's been a little while, so. But I don't think she
And do we know
marries.
if she has any romantic flings of any kind?
I do not know.
Okay, got it, got
I
it.
do
And
know
she's
that she
definitely
does some.
human.
Yep, I do know that she actually ends up doing like some tangling as far as like teaming up with people. She's teamed up with Spider-Man. She's teamed up with Wolverine. She's teamed up with Black Widow. She's done a lot of teaming up and stuff like that. She even like helped lead one of the wars against Doctor Doom, which was pretty cool too. So she's done some pretty cool shit.
Okay. Sounds like she's actually teamed up with quite a few interesting people because Black Widow and Wolverine aren't necessarily characters that play well with others, for
Nope.
lack of a better way of describing this.
Nope.
So that's really interesting. Now, does she have any particular enemies of her own?
Not that I personally know of. I mean, I guess you could technically say Namor since that whole fucking thing, but a lot of her enemies have to do with like overall arching enemies in general. So, like you got, you know, fucking Clawface or whatever the fuck that dude was from the fucking movie. He's definitely in the comics as well. Doctor Doom was a big enemy for her because of the whole stealing the vibranium from Wakanda and shit like that, and using it to up the Doom bots and make some crazy shit go on and happen like that. So I mean, most of her shit has to do with the basically either the enemies of Wakanda or the enemies of the Avengers.
Absolutely. So, does she? I think you mentioned she actually does team up with the Avengers at some point. So, there's actually two Black Panthers with the Avengers at some point.
I think the actual Black Panther was dead at that point. So T'Challa was
Okay.
dead at that point.
Okay, got it. Now, does she have a kind of squad of her own, or is she kind of too small to need one, or have one, or
She's,
want one?
I guess she's too small to need one as far as her own squad, but at the same time, I mean, she's got the whole army of fucking Wakanda at her beck and call, so.
Yeah, she's got
Who needs an
squad
army whenever
country.
you need, whenever you got a fucking army. So.
Now, does she have any particular weaknesses?
Not that I personally know of, besides the fact that she's not as tactical as I would say her brother is. So.
Okay. Now, the movies are portraying her as this crazy inventor scientist, and there's actually been a little bit of throw around conversation that she's the smartest person in the Marvel universe. Is any of that true in the comics?
No. I mean, at least from the comic books that I read, I don't remember her doing any kind of shit like that. It was always like fighting and stuff like that. She always wanted to be a fighter. Actually, a pretty cool character build that was for her was that whenever Wakanda first got invaded with the whole Doctor Doom thing, and they were trying to steal all that shit before she became Black Panther, uh, she actually had her first kill ever. She killed one of the cronies. I can't remember what his name was. It was Radioactive Man, and she took it really really hard. Like it was really hard for her to get over the fact that she actually like took another life, and that's whenever T'Challa like kind of like stepped in and was like, "Let me teach you that you're not just here to kill, like you're here to defend yourself, and that's what you did." So
Mm-hmm. Sounds like kind of an important moment for them.
yeah,
Okay, and currently in the comic books, it sounds like she's alive. Is that correct?
yes, I believe she runs a school.
And is that the school that we saw at the end of the movies where, do you know what I'm talking about?
Mm-mm, I do
The end of
not.
Black Panther, T'Challa showed up and basically bought a building and said
Oh yeah,
in
that's right.
California and said, "Yeah,
Yeah,
this is going
but
to be a school. You're going to run it," kind of thing.
yeah, that could definitely be what they're leading to for sure. I mean,
Okay.
it was actually in Wakanda, but yeah, it's kind of like the same thing as like Professor X's school. It's like the Wakandan School for Alternative Studies.
So, do you think that with the Black Panther being one of the people that was dusted at the end of Infinity War, do you think we're actually going to see her step into the Queen role in the movies, or do you think we're going to see somebody else take over that mantle?
I mean, she might solely for the fact that T'Challa's gone. So,
Yeah.
because I know we had a conversation about this, I think during the whole M'Baku DFU, or if not during a podcast or something, where we were talking about the fact of who would take over now that that's gone. So there could be like a huge power struggle in Wakanda, and we could actually see Shuri step up in order to put M'Baku in his place, type deal.
Now, does she have any significant weapons or transportation or any like significant outfit? Is there anything that particularly defines her image?
I mean, besides obviously wearing a female version of the Black Panther outfit, that's about it. I mean, those whole like
Okay.
gauntlets that she had in the movie, that's strictly in the movie. She
Okay.
is a skilled marksman, but she definitely does a lot more damage up close and personal. So she's a
Mm,
very
okay.
skilled fighter. I mean, I just don't know how far they would go with her character in the movie. I highly doubt we'll actually be able to see. I doubt we'll actually ever be able to see like her actual transformations and shit like that, which would be pretty cool.
So it sounds like we may have actually gotten a very different character in the movies than from the comic books. And of the ones you've told me about so far, other than Thanos, which I understand why they made that change, this one sounds like the one that's the furthest from the source material.
Yeah, probably. I'd say that.
Yeah, that's kind of unfortunate because I really like both characters individually, the movie Shuri and the comic book Shuri, and I wish they could kind of reconcile the two into one person. That would be my favorite.
That would. That would.
All
Although,
right, well, is there.
I guess
Go
one
ahead,
more
sorry.
thing I should say, because I was just kind of like glancing over my notes here. There was at one point, and I'm pretty sure it got resolved, but there was at one point where she actually banished T'Challa from Wakanda. And
Ooh.
that was during that whole Atlantis thing because she knew that T'Challa was still in contact with Namor. So she was upset that her brother could still, be talking to somebody that, she was technically at war with. But like I said, I know at some point she sacrifices herself for her brother, and that's when she dies. So obviously something was made up at some point.
Okay, that's really interesting. So yeah, what killed her then?
So she actually got killed by Proxima Midnight, which I don't know if you remember that or not, but that is actually one of Thanos' children, the one with the spear.
Yeah, the one with the
Mm-hmm.
kind of the thing across her eyes. Yeah.
Yep,
Huh.
that is.
And
She
was it
killed her
just
in the
kind of part of the
comics.
fighting and
Yep,
Proxima killed her?
she threw the fucking spear and it went through some people and was gonna hit the Black Panther. She jumped in the way.
Oof. Okay, well that's terrible. Man, but she was brought back to life by T'Challa. He specifically was the one
Yeah,
who kind of brought her back.
she
Is
was
that
stuck
right?
in a state of it was called the living dead, but T'Challa, or I'm sorry, not T'Challa. I think it's either T'Challa or the thing itself, and it encased her body in amber.
Hmm.
So yeah, and then basically she was able, or he was able to get her back to Wakanda and kind of like work on her and try to get her to come back to life, and that's when she went on that whole like journey of the soul and became
Mm-hmm.
the badass that she is now.
That is so cool. So do we think that she's actually kind of immortal's the wrong word, but super crazy durable now? Or do we think that she's equally as mortal as she was before?
I
She's
think
just
she's
now
mortal. I
got
just
these.
think that she has now these powers where she understands. Looks like one of the coolest comic book strips that I've seen since I was doing my research on this was like she was fighting this guy and he had like a fucking scythe and he swung it
Hmm.
at her to cut her in half and like just the top half of her turned into birds and flew away and her bottom half was still there and then they just all regrouped back into her after the scythe passed through her and then she just started like fucking him up. I was like, wow, that was pretty fucking cool.
That is really cool. Man.
Yeah,
Wow.
she's a beast.
Okay. So we don't really have an accurate portrayal in the media of Shuri outside
No,
of the comics. Like they're just two very different people.
pretty much,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, that's challenging, but not bad. Is there anything else that you really think I need to know about this
I
character?
don't think so. I think we're pretty good for base knowledge on Shuri. Like I said,
All right.
she's pretty new addition, so which was
Yeah.
kind of interesting to see that they threw her into the movie. But I mean, I like the character that's in the movie. I have no issues with her. I think she's funny.
I'm not gonna lie, this is the first character that you've told me about that I actually kind of want to go read the comic book version to understand and really like get to know.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, she's
Yeah,
definitely an interesting character. That's for sure.
I
Definitely.
like her.
And like I said, it's just being only 2005 release. Like I said, she's made some pretty interesting moves. She gained motion very quickly, so that's pretty cool. Definitely
That
pretty
is
cool.
cool. Well, will you give me my final quiz, my friend?
Yes, I will. I will do that. So first off, going back over the old one, first comic book appearance.
Black Panther Volume 4, Number 2 in 2005?
Correct. Birthplace
Wakanda.
was what was her first overall goal?
To become the first female Black Panther.
Who trained her to become a fighter?
T'Challa.
Has she ever become the Black Panther?
Indeed, yes.
What was her first conquest as queen? What was her first big war she led, I guess I should say.
Well, I'm going to guess Atlantis because that's the only one we talked about.
Yes, the destruction of Atlantis. What kind of leader was she?
Aggressive,
That's
fierce.
correct. What happens to Shuri when she dies?
She spends time in kind of this living dead state. Her soul goes and learns the history of Wakanda and she comes back with powers.
Yeah. What power was she brought back to life with?
The transformation powers.
Why was she rejected by the Panther God?
Because at the time that she was trying to become the first female Black Panther, she was too arrogant and she was too jealous of T'Challa to be the Black Panther.
Boom. Look at that. 100%.
Yes.
Boom, boom.
Yes, indeed. She's cool. I want to know more about her. I like her. She seems nifty.
I guess that would be one of like the ultimate goals of like the Marvel aspect of the DFU is to finally get you to actually like buy a comic book series just to read it. She would probably
That's
be the
kind of
easiest
lofty.
one. She'd probably be the easiest one, honestly. You could probably pick up like I'd be surprised if there wasn't because like what they do is they put the comics out there and then once the comics are gone, they're gone. And they end up becoming pretty pricey depending on how popular the character is. But then they release them in graphic novels as a full volume.
Mm.
So like if she's only in like the first 10 comics of that Black Panther series, that's probably
Hmm.
just one graphic novel volume that you could just pick up the volume for like $20 and have all 10 of them in there and read the entire story.
Oh, I'm
I
learning
don't
things about how to even
collect
read comics.
I don't collect graphic novels because in the comic book series they're seen, in my opinion, seen more of a cop out. So it's like you weren't around to get the original comic. You're not really a comic book fan because that's not really a comic book. It's a graphic novel. But Yeah.
And it can't have anything to do with it coming out years before you became interested in the
I
character.
mean, that sucks to suck. You got, hey, I wasn't collecting Deadpool comics whenever I first started reading Deadpool. I can't tell you. I think the most expensive comic, if I had to think about it right now, which lucky it wasn't too expensive. The most expensive comic I've dropped money on so far was I dropped $55 for one comic. $55 for a 14-page comic.
Okay.
And there are
I
two
have no
more.
concept of how that compares in normal
Well, a
price.
normal price for a comic book today is like $3.99.
Oh, okay.
So not too expensive. I had
Hmm.
the opportunity to drop $175 on a comic book, and I still kick my ass to this day for not doing it. I just really, I, it was a smart move that I didn't do it solely for the fact that I needed money. So it would have made that next week a little bit more stressful, but at the same time I probably should have done it. It was the first time Marvel ever did a 3D comic book cover. So like you actually,
Oh.
well, not 3D, but like kind of like one of those where like you move it and the fucking image moves
And
inside, yeah, type deal.
yeah.
And it was Deadpool, and he had like a top hat, and he was spinning his cane, and whenever you spun it or whenever you moved it to the right, he was dancing in the right corner. When you moved it to the left, he was actually twerking in the left corner. And that comic's like $800 now. So
Yep,
yeah,
that would have been smart.
yeah. Really wanted it really bad, but I had decisions I had to make. I was on vacation at the time too, so I was like, I got to make sure I can get back type deal. So yeah, it really sucked.
Yeah, that's
Really
fair.
sucked. But yeah, that and then like I had another opportunity to drop $375, but that was like on a lot of Deadpool comics together, and I was going to for sure do that. But then I started doing my research on some of the individual issues that I really, really wanted, and the dude was like way
Hmm.
overpricing them. So then I was like, well, I'm not gonna do that anymore. So, so now I just kind of stuck to more trying to just single solo out, and the specific series I'm talking about is actually his first run. He has 3 issues where he does jobs with the Punisher, and each one of those, it's like issue 54, 55, 56, I think, 53, 54, 55, one or the other. Um, every single one of those issues are 50 bucks. So
Oof.
yeah, it's gonna be $150 for just 3 comics.
Do
I
you
have
think
one of
that's
them
going to get more expensive?
as it goes on. Yeah, I mean, I'd be surprised if they're not already more expensive now because the Deadpool movies were a success, in my opinion,
Hmm.
and globally, money wise, they were definitely a success. So the first
Yeah,
one
that's
alone, I
fair.
mean, they only put $43 million into it, and they fucking tripled that just within the weekend. So
Jeez.
yep. So it's
Yeah.
just that's one of the things that I know I brought up on one DFU where I said try to find you a character that's not as well known because it's kind of cool to go hunting for a character that a lot of people don't know and you might actually find something that speaks to you a little bit more than these heroes that have been fleshed out. But there is a downside to that, and that is that if they become popular, they become harder to obtain. So where I used to be able to go to a comic book shop every Wednesday or every Thursday or every Friday and get the comic book issue I wanted to. If I'm not there at Wednesday when they open the door and it's a special edition or a special variant, my chances of me getting my hands on it are slim to none because there are that many more Deadpool fans out there, thanks to the movies.
Wow.
Yep,
Wow.
gets
This
pretty
whole
pretty
world reading
competitive.
these comics I know nothing about. Man,
Gets pretty competitive, that's for sure.
I don't even know where I'd go to get a comic. Where do you find comic
Next
books?
time you up here, I'm gonna take you to my comic book shop. I think that'd be a
Okay.
fun little adventure for you.
That's
It's
sounds like a good
actually really
activity.
fun. It's actually really fun atmosphere, honestly. Like whenever you're in there, I mean, because everybody's in there for the same purpose. It's the same reason why I like going to midnight releases for like video games and stuff, or like why I used to. Now I don't do it anymore because I buy all my shit digitally. But it
Hmm.
was just the atmosphere. I mean, everybody's there for the same purpose. Everybody's got you. You have something to talk about with the person next to you. That's just
That's
all there is
true. I
to it.
guess you all know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're all there for the same reason. Everyone, and the best part is, it's like no one has to be a fan of a specific thing to talk to somebody. But oh, cool, you're picking up Deadpool. Are you a Deadpool fan? Oh yeah. Well, did you become a Deadpool fan of the movie, or you been reading the comics? So I've been reading them since New Mutants number 98. Bam, I already have a conversation going on, and just like that, ease. So yeah, it's pretty cool little interesting thing. Although I'm not sure how much the guys up there love me anymore. I had to end up shutting down like my account because I ended up moving like out into the country for a little while, and it was like an hour and a half to get to my comic book shop, and I was like, It's not really that feasible to me. So I took a break there for a while, and I didn't close my account, and I had an account set up where like every time a Deadpool issue came in, it was one was set aside for me, because once you start going to a place so long and you get a reputation, you can start making friendships and start making those requests. And that bag started getting big and big and big, and I forgot about it and forgot about it and forgot about it, and they had my old phone number, and yeah, they weren't happy with me whenever I finally came back. Obviously, that bag had already been emptied out at that point, and they sold all the issues that were in it, which I was like, fair game. But I haven't asked for that same thing again now that I legitimately live 5 minutes away from my comic book store, which is way more feasible for me. So, yeah, I just gotta go on there whenever I can, pick up what I can. Basically, my main goal at this point, because, I mean, that's still another issue, is that when they get so popular, they get so many series. It's ridiculous. It's not just here's Deadpool series. Here's like 5 new Deadpool single series. Here's Deadpool and Spider-Man. Here's Deadpool and Captain America. Here's Hawkeye and Deadpool. Like, he's all over the fucking place. So then it's like I went from spending like $5 to $10 to maybe $15 a month on Deadpool to where I could probably easily blow 100, if not 200, on Deadpool a month. And that's just not. I'm not able to.
That's
do it.
too much. That's
So
a lot.
I want to collect his first run, like his first big run. I have his like first original runs. His first big run, which was literally just titled Deadpool, which is the one that has that Punisher in it and everything else. It's exactly, which was on purpose, 69 issues.
Figures.
It's great. So I want
Of
to
course it
collect
was.
that from start to finish. I'm pretty close. I think if I had to put a number on it, I probably have 40 out of the 69.
Wow.
And they're not in order. I do not have them in order. It's like I have like all the way up to I think 32, and then it's like 38, 41, 54, 58, 61, 65. So
So you got gaps.
I
That
got
would make
gaps,
sense.
which sucks because I want to finish that series at some point in my life. That would be great. So. And then when I finish
Well, you
that one,
can't.
I can move on to the next and then work on collecting that one and so on and so forth. I don't think you've
It's
ever
good to
even.
have outstanding goals. It's
Sure,
good to not
sure.
have everything resolved.
I don't think you've ever even seen my comic book collection.
I've seen bits and pieces of it. You've shown me little, like,
Fair enough.
single ones. Yeah, I didn't get to touch anything, and there was one you told me I could touch, and I refused because I was concerned I was going to hurt something.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, I got 2 long boxes. And inside my long
Yes.
boxes, I got like black plastic file tabs to be like, this is this
Yep.
series and this is this series. And yeah. I actually broke open a comic yesterday. I actually got to the point where I was like, you know what? I haven't read a comic in a while, and I broke open one of my favorites and just sat back and chuckled.
Enjoyed.
Yeah. Good old Deadpool and Daredevil up to no good. Well, not Daredevil, but Deadpool up to no good. It's great.
He usually is. Well, that was a rabbit trail all about comic
Yes,
books,
it
which is something
was.
apparently Chris wants us to learn as well. But
Yes.
that will do it for our class on Shuri. If you like this content, please like and subscribe and turn on the notifications so you know when to come to class. Please come and interact with us in the comments below on our Twitch links, or always follow us on Twitter. In the meantime, have a great day. Bye, friends.